Hey everybody, Joel's Jigs here. We're going to tie a new jig today. It's going to be the pattern of the Wingerdinger, which is a bead jig, but it's a little bit different sort of bead jig than the ones that have been on the market for years and years. It's different than the beaded rabbit furs and the double beaded marabous, schloppens, hackles, things like that. There are similar ones out there that we'll go into this a little bit later when we actually tie it, that run a piece of line through the beads then tie it on, or they run a piece of rubber through the beads and then tie that on. This is with an actual tube, plastic tube, and we'll get better close-ups of this here in a minute. And then this is tied in to the actual jig, so it makes it a lot more durable than just a piece of mono or rubber, and then you don't have that piece of line or rubber when it goes through the bead has to come back out. You don't have that on the outside, kind of taken away from the presentation you're trying to go for. It's just the tube in the middle, and then the fish can see the outside of the beads and fur, whatever materials you use. This specific one calls for rabbit fur. It is a new one. It'll be up on the website probably when this is posted. Here another day, 2 days or so, something like that. It's called Love Connection. It's made with a really cool color of pink rabbit fur, and it's a different kind of cut than what most of you are probably used to. Even a lot of seasoned tires are used to. It's a micro cut, and we'll get better close-ups of this later too. So you're going to need some jig heads, which we have on the website. The tubing will be up there shortly as well for sale, because you have to have a special kind of tubing for this. It's not just any tubing. We use a certain kind. You'll be able to get that on there, and also materials pretty soon too. You'll be able to get rabbit furs and marabous and stuff like that. Beads. For this one, we use 6mm. The fluorescent salmon red, the same ones that we sell on our website. It's about the perfect shade of bead if you ask anybody, so we just carry that through to the Wingerdinger and use those. You can use any kind of bead you want, as long as the hole fits over the tube. We'll get better close-ups of this too. This is the bead that we use. Custom orders sometimes call for this one. Sometimes when I tie my own, I run 8s, 10s, sometimes even 12s. Not typically, but 8s and 10s, or 6s. 6s I usually run the most, and ones I tie for myself. All the ones on the website are 6mm, 3 6mm in the 32nd, 16th, 8th, and quarter, and then some new ones have been added for the Great Lakes trib guys that typically run smaller. Now, like the Niagara and things like that, they're going to be running a little bit heavier, but for the most part you're running 32nd, 64th, or sometimes even smaller. So ones that have been added, a few in the Wingerdinger pattern on the website are in the actual 64th, and those have 2 beads in them, just for hooked material. So it looks good. 3 beads is a little bit much for a 64th number 6 hook, so we put 2 beads in there. Like I said, jig heads you can get online. The most durable jig heads on the market. You can tie on those. If you pour and make your own, then by all means do that. We sell the hooks. Soon we'll have the paint up there for that too. But we'll get to the Love Connection Wingerdinger jig here in a minute, and a new one that's coming out with Still a few things to be sorted out with it, but it's probably going to be called the Humdinger, and that'll be with a larger bead in it, probably 2 beads, possibly 3. Just kind of seeing what fishes better, what produces better, and we'll go from there. It'll probably be a 2 bead, 2 8mm, or a 210. So look for that on the website. It'll be tied the exact same way. But we'll get some close-ups and I'll show you different size beads and things that you can do with the Wingerdinger pattern. Okay, this is the Love Connection Wingerdinger. We're gonna do here. I'm gonna need a jig head, and this is the rabbit fur that we're going to use. It's kind of a light pink. It's called salmon pink. It's a micro cut, so you can see it's pretty thin. It's pretty stretchy. It's thinner than the straight cut and even the cross cut, but it lays real nice on the hook. Then I'm gonna need some beads. This is the ones that we use. You can go all the way up to, bigger ones, but I'll show you those in a little bit. And some thread. If you watch the other videos, I usually use ultra thread, but they don't make a color to match, so this one matches pretty good. It's a uni thread, and it's a 6/0, just color pink. So it matches that pretty good. So we're not going to use the whole shank. I'm just going to go maybe down halfway. Down and back about 5 times, make a good bed. Okay, and this is what we're gonna do with the tubing that I mentioned earlier. It's not big. I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty small stuff, but it's bendy. It's not a rigid tube, so it'll let us tie it in. Now I'll try to do this best I can to show you. I just use my vise here, but you're gonna take the end of it and you're actually gonna melt it, and you'll see it kind of curl back. If it lights on fire, just blow it out, and then I push it against that metal, and you can see it forms kind of a little lip. But there's also, I don't know if you can see it, there's still a hole in the middle. So if you go on the website, or if you've purchased some of the Wingerdingers before, you'll notice that some of them have kind of a little piece of material coming out the end. Well, that's a piece of marabou, and it actually goes through this tubing. We're not going to do that one today. You can cover that in another one. But you can see there's still a tiny hole in there. When that's tied on like this, then the piece of material is going to come out here. But we're not going to do that today. So this is how you put the beads on. Oh, the typical Wingerdinger is done. Here's the beads on the tube here,
and this piece is just tied in. Now these 6mm are a good size for 16th, 8th, 32nd, you know, even 64th and quarter. If you want to change it up, then you can use, you know, pretty much any bead you want. I mean, there's a bajillion and a half beads out there. Just a size comparison here. You can go up in size. Here is the one we normally use. You can go up in size, or even one big, one small. You can do pretty much anything you want on this tube. This is a 10, I believe. Or you can even go up from there. This is one of my favorite colors, and I'll put the standard bead that we usually use, this one here. It's a big bead, but it's not any bigger than an egg cluster you would use. You know, if you need a bigger presentation or something like that, or if you just want a different color versus the, you know, for different water conditions than the red, you can always do that. So you can use pretty much any bead you want, as long as the hole is big enough to go on the tube. Then by all means, be creative, use what you want. I mean, you could do pink, orange, black, purple. Here's some other ones and sizes. But for this tying purpose, we're gonna do what we use standard on all of our Wingerdinger jigs, which is 3 6mm, the same beads that you can buy on the website. It's a fluorescent red, salmon red kind of. It's about the perfect color. So typically the tube and beads are tied close to the bend in the hook. You can tie them down here, you can tie them further up if you want. It's just a personal thing. It just looks better right here. You'll get some of the rabbit fur to go over a little bit, but you still have in the water, the rabbit fur is going to kind of flare out, so you're going to get the fish seeing the beads too, which is pretty important. So we're just going to line them up there, and this tubing, when you wrap it, will actually collapse and kind of stick up. Just go down and back a couple times on that. So here, those beads are going to stay there, not going to break like mono line will, or a piece of rubber that's in there. Plus, you don't have a line going on the outside that's holding the beads. You get the full presentation that you want. Okay, now we're gonna put the rabbit fur on. We'll cover this in kind of a how-to and everything on tying later, but you'll notice that the rabbit fur lays a certain way, just like crosscut does, straight cut does too, even micro does. It's laying back, so that's the end we're going to use, is where it's going this way, and that's the piece we're going to tie on. Just need a little bit to tie on. Start back by the beads. Depending on how much hair you want, you don't want too much, because then it'll actually take away from the beads. But you can always tie it like we'll do here, and then actually cut a little bit out on the top, so your beads are more visible. So you're just gonna start wrapping. And with the micro cut, you kind of got to pull it back, since it's technically a straight cut. And you can see it kind of takes shape here. If you want more, then just put your wraps closer together. This is about perfect though. Just a couple to tighten it down, and then we can cut it and secure it. Make sure you get the tip of that leather strip on the rabbit tied down. That's the important part. And then tie it off. This is just about 14, 15 half hitches. It's a lot easier than a whip finish tool, saves you a lot of time. Tighten it down, cut it. Okay, so here when it gets in the water, we'll do a wet version of it too later on. It'll act more like this. It'll stick out. This will actually become a little more translucent too, this color will. If you want, since you can't tell these hairs where to go in the water, if you want the beads to be more visible, pull out your top piece here, and just underneath cut a chunk of hair out, and that in the water will be thinner and the beads will be a lot more visible. So if you have any questions, you can message us on Facebook or email about any of the patterns you see here. There's a few videos out now, but that's all there is to this jig. It's simple. There's a lot of different rabbit fur colors out there, and like I stated, there's, like all of you have seen, there's a ton of beads and bead colors and different sizes, and some with glitter, some are glow. Summertime people use glow a lot of custom orders for glow. But it's a simple jig, but that's the rabbit move is really good, and you have the beads in there. We all know beads are good for salmon and steelhead, so with 3 of those in there and the rabbit fur, it's a pretty unbeatable jig. It's definitely a go-to of mine personally, and I know some of the other people that, you know, catch a lot of fish that I know, it's a go-to jig of theirs too. So that's the Love Connection, the Wingerdinger pattern. You can find it on joelsjigs.com if you don't want to tie your own. If you do want to tie your own, you can find the hooks and beads and jig heads and the tubing, and soon the materials will be up there too on the website. Thanks for watching.